now. Shoplifting in the UK has risen amid the cost of living crisis, and with the police facing accusations of failing to take the crime seriously, is it time to turn to the public for help?
Well, one high street shop is Home Bargains has put up this poster offering customers a reward of up to £500 if they report shoplifting in their stores, which later leads to prosecution.
Well, former Met Police Superintendent Leroy Logan is here. He says offering a cash incentive is a good thing. But businesswoman Geeta Sidhu-Robb says that shops should not be offering rewards, and it could encourage people to become vigilantes. Leroy, you might have a point on that. We've got a lot of messages on this from people watching. John has said, it is a dangerous thing to do, in my opinion. This is John watching. He says, because there could be a lot of false allegations by simply wanting to make a bit of money.
Yeah, there could be an element of abuse, but in all honesty, cash rewards have been offered for all sorts of crimes, mainly more serious offences, but in any way it can help people to jog their memory, or even, in some cases, it might stop them from having a go. They think, OK, let me step back, keep an eye on where they're going, or getting some car number or whatever, and then put in the information, and that could lead to a prosecution.
Geeta, why don't you like this idea? You're a businesswoman. You, I'm sure, can empathise, sympathise with Home Bargains. You know, they want to do everything they can to stop shoplifting.
I just think it's such a terrible idea, because when you're in a place where you're encouraging people to turn on the person standing next to them, in a place where we have so much death and destruction going on, to create a sense of paid snitching and vigilantism, we reward you for this behaviour. And, you know, they could be coming from malice, racial profiling. Sometimes you get followed in a shop because you look poor, right? And so what you're doing is encouraging people to turn on each other.
What if you actually see someone putting something
Well, then
in
why
their
would
jacket?
why would you need money for that? You could just go and create... I think people are inherently quite good, and that if you could say to someone, look, please keep an eye out, and if you do see somebody, come and tell someone. We do this all over the tube and flights and everywhere. This appeals to the lowest common denominator. You're poor, you're desperate, here's how I can encourage you to behave terribly in order to make money.
I just wonder if it could be dangerous. I mean, we were saying before the break that, that security guards employed in stores are really facing challenges now, because some of these people are coming in with crowbars. And they're coming with knives, you know. I mean, it can be potentially quite a violent crime these days. Yeah. So one sympathises with private security people. A member of the public going in?
No, that's the thing. They're not saying going in. No. They're saying, OK, let's get the information. And I can't see how that becomes a vigilante. A vigilante is a totally different entity where you go patrolling and outside the legal framework, all of these sort of things. But I think it's because shops are so desperate, they're not getting officers. I remember when I was a probationer, if you heard that there was a shoplifter being detained, that was your first arrest. Now, young officers don't have time. They've been, because the numbers are so low, they're getting pulled on more serious crime. And that's the issue. We haven't got sufficient officers and assets.
But surely that's your problem, that you're not treating it as a serious crime. And
no, it's got nothing to do with being not seeing it serious.
You just said that. You said
it's resort. I think Leroy means that it's numbers. Yeah. It's literal numbers of police officers.
So what we should do is take a person off the street who's poor and say to them, you can make 500 quid if you come in and report someone. How am I not walking up and down your street, up and down Home Bargain, looking for someone who's doing that?
You mean you're incentivising people because they might be desperate for the £500. That's the angle you're looking at.
And I wonder if this isn't a publicity campaign, because here we are talking about them because we object, well, I certainly object to what they're saying. And what we've done here is instead give them publicity for rewarding them for something that I think they shouldn't be offering.
Can you not also sympathise with, and it's not just big chains, smaller shops as well?
That's a big crime for a small shop.
Losing
losing
stock and knowing that if they call the police, and I don't know this for a fact, but I imagine, from what you're saying, Leroy Logan, imagining if you call the police, they go, you know what, we've got so much on at the moment, how serious do you think this is? Or we might not be able to get someone to your shop in the next 5 or 10 minutes.
I think you've got to weigh that up against ruining someone's life by somebody saying something that isn't true. So it's like, oh, you only get paid if it comes true. OK, so how does that work, right? I sit there and I walk around the shop and somebody goes, I think she was shoplifting. So you tell someone, so you're going to call me and you're going to say, well, we've had an accusation of shoplifting. Against whom? I don't know, it was anonymous, but could we talk to you? You're literally taking my life.
And presumably you'd then be called upon, if it did come to a prosecution, you'd be called upon to give evidence in court, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, they have to know what they're doing. And because there's one of the issues at the moment is there's a lack of people willing to give a statement, go on an ID parade, go to court. So because they think, well, one thing, police are not there to keep me safe. So it might be giving that information anonymously can actually be a way of clearing up these crimes.
Well, one just wonders if anything would be done with the evidence. We've got a call here from Kitty on Twitter, or X as it's now called. She says, I used to work for Home Bargains, and it's day in, day out. Sometimes and very often, it's the same people. She said, I could stand outside Home Bargains pointing these guys out, day in, day out, I'd be a millionaire in a week. But unfortunately, nothing will get done with the evidence. And even though the police...
Well, there is that issue. There's that issue where lack of numbers and the fact that police officers are not as experienced as they used to be and not dealing with it efficiently. And then also, is it going to go through the Crown Prosecution Service to say it's in the public interest to prosecute that person because of the plight, you know, economic crisis, you know, lack of money, feeding their children, that sort of thing.
Actually, that's
very rarely will lead to a prosecution.
Well, I can imagine that scenario, Geeta. I mean, somebody in a shop might say, I've seen that person shoplifting.
Right.
But the person was putting a tin of beans in their coat. Would that ever even get
No, exactly. And what you've done is also, you've got to weigh that up against the person that just gets pulled up in front of this and their entire life and self-esteem is destroyed because somebody accused them of something. And every time they then walk around a shop, they're going to worry about whether or not it's going to happen to them again.
That happens anyway.
Well, no, but that's not an acceptable
when I go in the
response.
store as a black man, I get people following me and all that sort of thing.
How does that feel?
Really?
Because I get followed in shops.
I'm not saying it's good.
Well,
listen, I had that even worse in the 60s and 70s.
What if I pay someone to follow you?
No, but they're not getting paid to follow you.
Well, they will
just
be.
A question. It might be they see that going on and they think, hold on, I'm not going to say anything, but if there's a process in which I can give that information, all I think they're giving is the communication channel to feed...
You've got to see the good with the bad.
I suggest it can, because I've seen it work. I've seen shops do this when I was in the police service. So it's not that it doesn't work.
Can we just drill down into it? If somebody does see somebody stealing something in a shop, what do they do? Assuming in that shop there isn't a security guard, so they can't go to a security guard, and they can't see a manager, there's just 2 or 3 people on the tills, what do they do with that information?
Well, they clock the information. I would like to think that the store itself, if they're offering an award, they've got a number that you can call,
poster,
so that there's a process in which you can give that information. Normally, someone would think, well, it's not my business because, you know, that's their shop. At least they're offering that and a process in which they can communicate, because communication is the key, and people should be doing this voluntarily in an ideal world, but we're not in an ideal world.
OK.
Well, we asked you on Twitter, should the public be paid to help catch shoplifters? Just over half are in favour. Just under half agree with you, Geeta, that it shouldn't happen. Thank you both very much indeed.